Now once your sketch is ready, you can start the shading. So what I do is look at the different values. What I want to do is use the black colored pencil. I'm just going to use this to go over my sketch line because it's all dark anyway, and the crease line is dark as well. But you want to use light pressure because you want to be able to blend this. You don't have to get the correct value now. You can darken later. So I want to start with the 2B. I'm going to start the shading around the eye. When you shade, you want to make sure that you use really light pressure so that you don't stop with a hard edge here. But then once we use the soft tissue to blend, you can create a nice smooth transition. If you're not used to using very light pressure and it's turning out too dark, just use the HB. These pencils that I use, the Faber-Castell 9000 graphite pencils, are quite light. So if you're using another brand, they could be darker. Then you can start the shading with the HB. So you see how I kind of like sketch in a circular motion and with the side of the pencil lead to get it more smoother and an even result. With the soft tissue, we're going to smudge this all. Now you can smudge and smoothen any eraser lines you see. Now after your first layer of smudging with this soft tissue, you might notice that everything gets a bit lighter. And because I will smudge over this and it will get a bit lighter, I'm using the 4B. So that's how you can choose which grade of graphite pencil you can use. It's always best to start light and build up the values with light pressure. And you see how light the pupil got, even though I used the black colored pencil. Now with the black pencil again, going over the iris. The top part of the iris is quite dark. I'm going over the sketch line again. Make sure you have a sharp pencil tip. If you're drawing the same size as me, it can be quite tricky, those thinner lines. So now I'm using a bit more medium pressure to really darken everything. So I know I can darken some areas in the eye, but first I want to finish more of the skin. Now let's just use the blending stump for that because I don't want it to get too light. So you see how you can create that smooth transition here from the highlight to the shadow here, just under the eyebrow. And I think I need to add some more hairs, but I'm going to do that later. So you can hold the pencil a bit more to the back, not too far because I do want a bit more control because this is a smaller area. You also see a shadow here below the tip. You see that? I'm going to use the 4B to add a layer here below where you really see that shadow below the nose. With the blending stump, make sure to clean it. I don't have an extra piece of paper here, so what I'm going to do is just use the kneaded eraser. But normally I just wipe it off on an extra piece of paper. So if you don't have that, you can just rub it on the kneaded eraser. So if the outline of the nose is darker, remember, you need to lighten that. You see this part, kind of like a shadow, and then the nose ring. I usually use the blending stump for smaller areas and try to clean it in between if you're smudging lighter areas. For the hair, I want to use a charcoal pencil. This is the 4B soft. So any type of hair you draw, just look at the shapes you see, and you can draw anything actually. So this is what I see. I see all of these small curved lines. And you see how I'm skipping some areas and just leaving them white. And then once we use the blend, let's do that now. I have an extra blending stump that I just use for charcoal. So I don't use the one for graphite. So you see what I mean? Now that I blend, it won't be white, but it will be a bit lighter, those areas. So this is what I'm going to do for the whole hair. Charcoal can be erased really easily. Make sure that you clean the tip. You can also use the extra charcoal that you have on the stump. Just blend for those hairs. Okay, so that's the technique I'm going to use. So if you don't want to use charcoal pencils, you would just use the black colored pencil in this step. With the other portrait drawings, I'd use the black colored pencil for all darker values and then the graphite pencils for all the other values. Some types of hair I've drawn before, like straight hair, a bit wavy hair, but really textured hair, or this kind of hair, like really curly. It's all quite new to me, but there is a certain technique I use to draw hair, and that actually works with any type. The only thing that you're going to do differently is draw the lines differently. If it's straight hair, you're going to draw straight lines. If it's wavy hair, you're going to draw a bit more, wavy lines. Curly hair, you're going to draw curved lines. Textured hair, you're going to draw curved lines, but then really small, like tiny circles almost. So that's the thing. All the same technique, but just different lines, shapes. Also look at the direction you see the hair is flowing. Once you know once you know the right technique to use, then you should be able to draw any type of hair. And it also requires practice. So if you're new to hair, for example, then you can practice some more. All of these techniques that I use, these drawing techniques, this is actually the first time I'm trying this out with the charcoal pencil. So I'm curious to see how this will turn out. So then I just go for it. I try it. And if I'm not satisfied in the end, I'm not thinking about, oh, I ruined this drawing. I will think about, I've learned from it and know that I'm not going to use this technique next time and just do what I normally do. Build up the layers with the graphite and black colored pencil. I want to have most of the hair finished when I continue with the face. And also, if you have the hair, you have some dark values to compare to. You see how we darken the hair, or we add dark value now. And then you look at the eye, see how light that is. See how you need to darken that as well. And I would love to hear from you if you're using charcoal now for the first time and combining it with the graphite. What you think about charcoal, how it goes for you, if you're going to use it more often. So it almost looks like the charcoal that I'm adding is too dark, but wait until we finish more shadows on the face. So try not to critique your drawing at this stage. Remember, you need to go through a few ugly stages before you can make it look better. And I also like how I can just add charcoal onto my favorite paper, because normally they advise you to use textured paper with charcoal so that the charcoal can hold better, but I like smooth paper. Now let's add another layer. So I'm just going to go over the areas that I see that are darker in the reference photo. So when drawing hair, it's all about patience and going step by step. So the first layer can be more like a rough layer. And now you can start to be a bit more precise, looking at the curls and everything. And then after blending this layer, we can have a look and critique the hair drawing. And if you have lost the lights, like the highlights, then you can use the eraser. So if you look at the dark contrast of the hair in comparison to the eye now, you can see that it doesn't look right. Like values don't look finished because it's not dark enough. If you look at the value in the reference photo, the eyelashes and the pupil and the eyebrow are just as dark as the hair. So you will need to have that in your drawing as well. I'm going to work on the face, and then I can always come back to the hair, add those flyaway hairs, maybe add some more details. For now, this is good enough, this value, dark value I have. Now I can continue with the face and also darken the eye. With graphite, you can't get any darks, and you really need to get that dark contrast if you want to create a realistic portrait. So you definitely can't only use graphite. Well, you can, but you won't be able to add that dark contrast. You will need to use some other pencils. Faber-Castell also has darker pencils like the graphite, the Pitt Graphite Matte, and that's not only graphite, that's, I believe, carbon is added to that pencil, and that's how they can make it darker. So you can also use those pencils for the darker values. There are lots of options available now. When I started drawing, I was really searching for a dark pencil to use to add with my graphite pencils. And eventually I started just using a black colored pencil, but you don't have to stick to that option. There are lots of options now for the darker values. Just something you can try out, and if it works, then it works. Then you can just use that. Let's just blend this. I think it should be a bit lower here. And now I can also see that I can darken the shadow around the eyes. Just darken it a bit. Maybe we can even use the 6B. So this outline that I'm going over now, this will need to blend in with the shadow on the lip. And the lower lip is also just pretty dark. And with the 6B, the shadow, and here below the lip. So with the black pencil, corner here, and then here this line. But then don't just draw an outline, like we have now. Also gently or light pressure with the black, blend this line by adding shading on the lower lip. See that? Now you got rid of that outline and make it look like a shadow. Because if you just darken that line, you have an outline, it will look less realistic. Try to get rid of all outlines around the face here. You don't want outline. Okay, so now with the 2B, I'm going to add graphite. Try to use consistent pressure when you do this. If you think that's difficult, the only thing you can do is practice with this. You will get a smoother layer of the graphite. And the only way to get better is by drawing, shading as often as you can. That's how you will train your hand to get better at drawing and shading. But make sure that when you're shading, you use light pressure so that you can blend this with the mid-tone here, so that you don't get an outline of the shadow that you're adding now. So that's why it's important to build up the layers gradually with light pressure. The graphite layer can get just a bit lighter after using the soft tissue. But what I want to do after this is move on to the neck, because once we also have the neck and the shadow correct, then we can critique the value on the face. Now so I can blend the chin further, but I want to move on to the neck. And if I compare the value of the neck to the face, the neck is more in shadow. So I'm going to use the 6B first and darken this shadow. So this is great to use, so you can compare the value to the reference photo, and then you can compare it to your drawing. If you use the value scale, you can compare the values in the reference photo and then recreate that same value in your drawing. And the more often you draw, you will get used to seeing values. Your eyes will get better at comparing values, the highlights, the midtones, and the shadows. So I can try to go over it a bit. If you don't get it smooth, that's when I use the soft tissue and blend over it. Now with the 8B, I'm going to darken the shadow. And if you blend too far, you can clean up with the kneaded eraser. I'm still just using the 8B. Let's use the tissue for this, but also the blending stump if I want it to be a bit darker and not lighter. But then if it gets too dark, I use the soft tissue again. So I start with the blending stump and sometimes I just go over it with the soft tissue. So with the 8B, darken the shadow some more. And then here, I'm going to blend this, but darken first and then carefully blend. I'm using really light pressure with the black colored pencil. Now I'm going to add another layer with the 8B to this shadow here. I want it darker. This is the 4B charcoal pencil. Kind of like a circular motion is how I blend. Skipping some areas where there's a highlight, for example. Okay, with the black pencil, you see I have a really sharp tip, so I can just draw really thin lines. You want them to look natural, and you do see that they're kind of messy on the face. Try to make some thinner, some thicker, some lighter, some darker. You know, not all of these same wiggly lines. So try to make a natural hairline. See how that already makes a difference? I think I want this to be even darker. If you have a darker gray than the 8B, or maybe if you have the Pitt Graphite Matte. This is the 6B. I'm just going to go over this. No, I can use the 8B. The shadow is darker. So before I add all of this hair on top, to darken the shadow a bit. Yeah, I think that is a bit better now that it's darker. So adding these smaller hairs really make a difference. And again, like I said, try to draw a bit more thicker ones, thinner ones, or fill it in if it's a bit further here. And if you can't get it dark enough, so you can really see the difference here. Comparison of the charcoal and the black pencil. So if I can't get it dark enough, just use the charcoal. Carefully blend over those. Maybe you can make them look even softer like that. Okay, so here it's not a lot of hair, so it's easier to follow. So I think I'm going to leave this and then the rest with the black. That's the only tricky thing here when working with graphite and charcoal. Careful with the charcoal. Now I want to use the black colored pencil and draw these lines for the flyaway hairs. I'm also going over the shoulder here. So use kind of medium to hard pressure for this black, and now look at that. Just one layer of charcoal See how great the charcoal is? If I would have to draw the hair with the black colored pencil, I would have to build up layers, and I wouldn't even get it as dark as now, I think. Oh, now that I'm working on the eye, I want to use the white marker and just draw that tiny dot, like that. And I can really see that bright highlight. And the highlight got a bit bigger. What I do is use the black colored pencil, like that. Just going to add a bit more graphite here and here, so that I can blend it, make it look a bit soft, just a bit more where I shade it over. Just bring that part of the highlight back and blend over the edges so that you don't get any eraser lines. I'm just shading above the line to get a smoother transition. So that's how you can, if you have any hard edges in your drawing where it should be softer, then you can just like add some more graphite next to that edge and blend. And so you create a smoother transition. So I think these are the last details. I'm almost finished with this drawing. Just the shape of these curves, you know. Then I'm going to blend over this because this is obviously too light. Okay, now let's blend this. I'm going to shade over this area, smoothen a bit more. Now I'm going to add a few more of these flyaway hairs. Blend this a bit. With the soft tissue, one more time. I think that's it. So I'm going to use the kneaded eraser to clean up here. I don't really see anything that I can add or change, but having the contrast from white to black, it makes the drawing pop more. At least that's what I think, and I just like a white clean background so that you have the focus on the person. So here's my finished drawing, and I think that the table didn't even turn out that messy with the charcoal and the charcoal dust of the pencil that I wiped or blew away. I enjoyed working or using the charcoal pencil for the hair. I don't think I could have get it this dark with the black colored pencil. So in any future drawings, if I'm going to add dark hair or any dark areas in the face, I'm definitely going to combine charcoal with the graphite. I also like how I can combine graphite and charcoal both on my favorite paper, the smooth paper. So I'm satisfied how this one turned out. I hope you learned something from this video and that you got some ideas how you can combine graphite with charcoal also. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in one of the next videos.